This video will feature two stories with horror and mystery themes. In the background, you will hear soft rain and thunder to help you relax. I hope you enjoy this content and have a good night's sleep. The horse-drawn carriage clattered along the winding, overgrown path leading to the isolated estate. Samuel Harrow peered through the fogged-up window, his breath leaving transient marks on the glass. The overcast sky seemed to mirror the uncertainty that lingered in the air. Beside him, Eleanor clutched the brim of her hat, her eyes fixed on the dilapidated mansion that would soon be their home. The ancient trees lining the pathway twisted and contorted, their skeletal branches reaching out like the gnarled fingers of long-forgotten ghosts. The carriage creaked to a halt, and the driver, a grizzled figure with sunken eyes, shot the couple a fleeting, uneasy glance. The horses neighed in distress, as if protesting against the impending intrusion onto this desolate canvas. As they stepped onto the overgrown lawn, Samuel's gaze lingered on the sprawling landscape. The land they now claimed as their own, the neglected estate, had an air of melancholic beauty, with wildflowers stubbornly pushing through the cracks in the cobblestone path. In the distance, a crow cawed ominously, as if heralding the arrival of unwanted guests. The front door groaned open, revealing the interior swallowed by shadows. A chill ran down Eleanor's spine, but Samuel's eyes sparkled with a feverish determination. "Our new beginning," he murmured, his voice carrying a note of excitement that failed to mask the apprehension lurking beneath. Inside, the air hung heavy with the scent of dust and decay. The remnants of a bygone era lay scattered. A faded tapestry here, a cracked mirror there. Samuel moved through the rooms like a man possessed, mapping out his vision for a future that seemed at odds with the ghosts of the past. In the parlor, a worn-out floorboard creaked beneath Eleanor's boot, echoing through the silence like a spectral whisper. She shivered, casting a wary glance at the walls that seemed to hold secrets. The oppressive atmosphere bore down on her shoulders, and she couldn't shake the feeling that unseen eyes followed their every move. The couple stood on the threshold of their new life, unaware that beneath the foundation they planned to lay, forgotten souls stirred in restless slumber. The graveyard, concealed by the mist, harbored a history etched in sorrow and pain, a history that would soon claw its way to the surface, demanding recognition. As the shadows deepened and the first night fell upon the estate, a cold breeze whispered through the ancient trees, carrying with it the faint echoes of a time long past. The Harrows, unknowingly entwined with a history not their own, were about to unearth secrets that would shatter their perceptions of reality and plunge them into a darkness that waited patiently, like a predator in the shadows. The fog rolled in with a ghostly embrace as Samuel Harrow strolled the halls of their newly built estate. Eleanor, his wife, traced the delicate pattern of the Victorian wallpaper with her fingertips, her senses heightened by the unexplained chill that hung in the air. The sunlight struggled to penetrate the dense mist outside, casting the house in a muted, eerie glow. In the evenings, when the shadows stretched and mingled with the lingering daylight, the couple began to notice a subtle shift in the atmosphere. Whispers, soft and elusive, danced through the air like long-forgotten secrets. Samuel, engrossed in his architectural endeavors, dismissed Eleanor's apprehensions as mere figments of an overactive imagination. Yet, in the quiet moments between hammer strikes and saw whirs, the whispers persisted. Eleanor heard them in the rustle of curtains, in the creak of floorboards beneath her tentative steps, whispers that seemed to beckon from the walls themselves, a clandestine conversation from a bygone era. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and shadows claimed the corners of their home, Eleanor found herself alone in the master bedroom. The air grew thick, charged with an unseen energy. She stood near the towering wardrobe, her reflection distorted in the antique mirror, and caught a glimpse of a figure that wasn't her own, a silhouette from another time. A breath caught in Eleanor's throat as the figure turned toward her, its eyes empty sockets that seemed to pierce through the veil of centuries. The whispering crescendoed, a chorus of forgotten souls, their words a haunting melody that transcended time. "Samuel!" Eleanor called, her voice trembling, but her husband's study remained indifferent to the spectral symphony. The figure dissipated like mist, leaving Eleanor alone with a lingering dread. That night, beneath the oppressive darkness, Samuel slept soundly while Eleanor lay awake, her eyes tracing patterns in the ornate wallpaper. The whispers grew louder, a spectral chorus that echoed through the hollows of their home. The room seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy, each heartbeat accompanied by an ancient lament. As the night wore on, the whispers intertwined with Eleanor's dreams, blurring the line between reality and the ethereal. She awoke with a start, the room bathed in an unnatural glow. The wardrobe loomed like a sentinel, its doors slightly ajar, revealing the secrets it harbored within. With hesitant steps, Eleanor approached the wardrobe. The whispers reached a fevered pitch, a cacophony of voices imploring her to unveil the forgotten. As she swung open the doors, a chilling wind swept through the room, extinguishing the candles and plunging everything into darkness. Eleanor stood in the void, surrounded by the echoes of the past. The whispers transformed into anguished wails, the walls pulsating with the pain of those long gone. She recoiled, attempting to retreat, but the doors slammed shut with a force that shook the foundations of the house. In the suffocating silence that followed, Eleanor was left with an unsettling truth. The whispers were not mere phantoms of the mind, but the spectral murmurs of a graveyard's ancient denizens. The house, now a vessel for their lament, held secrets that Samuel's architectural dreams could not contain. Darkness crept over the Harrow house, a silent accomplice to the unsettling energy that clung to the air like a malevolent mist. The sun dipped below the horizon, leaving the couple to navigate the labyrinthine corridors of their own home in the cold embrace of shadows. Eleanor wandered through the dimly lit rooms, her footsteps echoing against the hardwood floors like a mournful melody. Samuel, oblivious to the growing unease, immersed himself in blueprints and sketches in his study, chasing the elusive specter of architectural perfection. The distant howls of the unseen creatures outside seemed to harmonize with the whispered secrets that seeped through the walls. The air turned icy as Eleanor entered the grand hall, adorned with antiques that bore the weight of centuries. A flickering candle cast dancing shadows. Upon the portraits of long-forgotten faces, their eyes following her every move with an otherworldly intensity. Unnerved, she quickened her pace, her breath catching as the temperature plummeted. In Samuel's study, the scratching of his pen on parchment echoed louder than the distant thunderstorm gathering outside. His obsession had become an invisible barrier, isolating him from the growing sense of dread that wrapped its tendrils around the heart of the house. Eleanor hesitated at the threshold, reluctant to disturb him, but the disquiet within her urged her forward. "Samuel," she whispered, her voice barely audible against the chorus of whispers that seemed to resonate from the walls themselves. The flickering candlelight cast an eerie glow on his face as he looked up, his eyes haunted by a fervent determination that sent shivers down her spine. "What is it, Eleanor?" His tone, usually warm, now carried a disconcerting edge, and his gaze lingered on her with an intensity that bordered on the unnatural. "We need to leave this place," she urged, her eyes searching his for a trace of recognition. "Can't you feel it? The house? It's alive with something malevolent." Samuel's expression hardened, a dark shadow passing over his features. "This is our dream, Eleanor. I won't let superstition tear it apart." The room seemed to exhale a collective sigh, and the candle flames flickered violently, as if struggling against an unseen force. Eleanor, undeterred, pressed on, pleading for her husband to acknowledge the spectral dance around them. But Samuel, consumed by his architectural vision, dismissed her fears as the product of an overactive imagination. As the night wore on, the spirits, angered by the continued desecration of their resting place, whispered with increased urgency. Doors creaked open of their own accord, and ethereal figures flickered at the edges of the couple's peripheral vision. The air itself seemed to pulse with an otherworldly heartbeat, resonating with the echoes of the past. Unknown to Samuel, Eleanor, and the spirits, the grand hall mirrored the unfolding drama. The antique portraits, once silent observers, now bore witness to a mounting tension that transcended time. The eyes of the long dead watched as the living danced on the precipice, oblivious to the spectral symphony that enveloped them. And in the heart of the night, as the storm outside reached its crescendo, the malevolent presence that had taken residence in the Harrow house revealed itself with a bone-chilling wail, a harbinger of the darkness that awaited in the chapters yet to unfold. The house seemed to exhale whispers with every creaking floorboard and shifting shadow. The air, once crisp and promising, now hung heavy with the weight of unseen eyes. Samuel's study, a dimly lit chamber filled with dusty tomes and the scent of aged leather, became his haven, a place where the boundaries between reason and the ethereal blurred like the fog outside. Eleanor, her once bright eyes now clouded with unease, stood in the doorway, hesitating to enter. The walls seemed to sigh, and the flickering candlelight danced with a spectral waltz. "Samuel," she whispered, the name trailing off like a ghostly echo. He turned, eyes bloodshot from sleepless nights spent poring over ancient manuscripts. "What is it, Eleanor?" His voice, though strained, carried an undercurrent of irritation. She approached slowly, tracing her fingers along the dusty spines of the books that lined the shelves. "I saw her again," Eleanor confessed, her voice barely audible above the moans of the wind outside. "Her who?" Samuel's gaze remained fixed on the worn parchment in his hands, his obsession unwilling to yield even to his wife's apprehension. "The woman," Eleanor stammered. "In the hallway. She reached out to me." A shiver crept down her spine as she recounted the encounter. Samuel scoffed, his fingers tracing the faded ink of a centuries-old map. "You're letting your imagination run wild, Eleanor. We're under stress with the construction. That's all." But Eleanor knew better. The house breathed secrets, and she felt them crawling beneath her skin. The next night, as they lay in bed, shadows cast by the muted moonlight danced upon the walls, taking sinister shapes. Whispers slithered through the room like serpents, unseen but unmistakably present. A low hum filled the air, resonating through the bones of the house. Samuel, oblivious to the encroaching darkness, muttered incomprehensible words in his sleep, mutterings that seemed to echo the cryptic chants of a bygone era. As dawn painted the sky in hues of gray, Eleanor stared at her husband's troubled face. Something had taken root in Samuel, a darkness that twisted his once charming features into a mask of torment. She wondered if the spirits, angered by the intrusion into their sacred resting place, had begun to claim him. The next day, as the construction continued, Eleanor wandered through the skeletal framework of the house, feeling the eyes of the forgotten upon her. The wind whispered ancient laments, and the earth beneath her feet seemed to pulse with a heartbeat long extinguished. In the stillness of the construction site, Eleanor could almost hear the voices of the past, warning her of the impending storm. The facade of her husband's bravado cracked further, revealing the fractures in their once solid foundation, a foundation now built upon the restless bones of the forgotten. The air within the Harrows' home hung thick with the weight of unseen spirits, the atmosphere electric with a spectral tension that seemed to seep through the very walls. Samuel's candle flickered erratically as he huddled over ancient tomes, their pages yellowed and brittle with age. The room echoed with the sound of his rapid breaths, each one a testament to his fevered pursuit of the truth. Eleanor, her eyes heavy with the burden of fear, watched her husband from across the dimly lit room. The glow of the fireplace cast eerie shadows on the walls, dancing to an otherworldly rhythm that seemed to mock the couple's misplaced optimism. Samuel, surrounded by dusty volumes and cryptic symbols, traced the etchings with trembling fingers. He muttered incantations under his breath, words lost to time as the spectral energy in the room pulsed with each syllable. The walls seemed to groan in protest, bearing witness to the unfolding revelation of the graveyard's grim history. A cold wind swept through the room, extinguishing candles in its wake. The oppressive silence shattered as the ethereal whispers of the forgotten souls rose like a mournful chorus. Eleanor's heart quickened, a sense of foreboding settling over her like a shroud. As Samuel chanted, the room's temperature plummeted. Frost crept along the edges of the windows, tracing patterns that mirrored the anguish etched into the gravestones outside. Shadows deepened, and the Harrows found themselves ensnared in a spectral embrace, the past clawing its way into the present. The room became a canvas for the spirit's agony, manifesting images of a bygone era stained with blood and regret. Ghostly apparitions materialized, their faces etched in sorrow, their eyes reflecting centuries of anguish. The air buzzed with an otherworldly resonance, echoing the collective lamentation of the restless souls. As the visions unfolded, Samuel's eyes widened with a mixture of horror and understanding. The atrocities committed on this sacred ground were laid bare. An unspoken pact broken, lives cut short in the name of greed and power. The spirits betrayed in life sought retribution in death. Eleanor, overcome by the weight of the revelations, stumbled backward. The room seemed to warp, time folding in on itself. The boundaries between the living. The air within the Harrows' home hung thick with a palpable tension, a symphony of spectral whispers that clawed at the edges of sanity. Samuel, once the embodiment of stoic determination, now teetered on the precipice of madness, his eyes reflecting the tortured dance of shadows cast by unseen entities. The walls seemed to breathe, exhaling the stale breath of the graveyard's secrets. Eleanor, haunted by the knowledge that her husband had unwittingly unleashed this terror, clutched the tattered remnants of their unraveling reality. A dim light flickered in the room, casting elongated shadows that seemed to writhe with a life of their own. The clock, an ancient timepiece inherited with the house, ticked with a maddening irregularity. Each second, a reminder of the tenuous grasp on the temporal realm. Samuel, consumed by the darkness that swirled around him, muttered incomprehensible incantations, his fingertips tracing invisible patterns in the air. The room quivered as a spectral gust swept through, extinguishing the flickering flame of the lone candle. In the oppressive darkness, whispers crescendoed into anguished wails. The boundary between the living and the dead blurred, a nebulous veil rending at the seams. Eleanor, her heart pounding in synchrony with the ghostly lamentations, navigated the obsidian abyss, her trembling hands seeking Samuel's. The touch, once an anchor in the storm, now felt like a connection to an abyssal void. His vacant eyes reflected an abyss within, mirroring the tortured souls clamoring for retribution. In the suffocating silence that followed, a ghastly procession materialized, a spectral congregation of the forgotten. Wisps of ethereal figures, eyes hollow but accusatory, bore witness to the desecration of their sacred resting place. Samuel, oblivious to the silent judgment, continued his arcane mutterings, unwittingly amplifying the unrest. As the ghostly congregation closed in, the air crackled with energy, the very fabric of reality unraveling. Eleanor's voice, a desperate plea, pierced through the spectral cacophony, invoking a semblance of clarity within Samuel's tormented mind. "Stop, Samuel. You're tearing the fabric of existence itself." The words hung in the air, a delicate thread in the tapestry of chaos. Samuel's haunted gaze met Eleanor's, a flicker of recognition amidst the tempest of his fractured psyche. The spectral figures momentarily halted, seemed to waver between wrath and mercy. In that suspended moment, a distant tolling echoed, a tolling that bridged the chasm between worlds. The spirits, their mournful expressions softened, dissipated into the gloom, leaving the room in an eerie calm. The clock, once erratic, resumed its measured ticking, as if time itself sought to reclaim its rhythm. Samuel, drained and hollow-eyed, collapsed into Eleanor's arms. The boundary between the living and the dead, fractured by ambition and folly, quivered with the weight of unresolved echoes. The Harrows, entwined in a fragile embrace, stood on the precipice of a new reality. The shattered boundary a testament to the irreversible cost of disturbing the forgotten. The moon hung low in the ink-black sky, casting a feeble glow upon the time-worn facade of Turner's Emporium. Nestled in the heart of an isolated town, the grocery store stood as a relic of days gone by, its weathered sign creaking in the gentle night breeze. David Turner, a lanky figure with tired eyes and an air of quiet melancholy, moved through the aisles with a measured step, the dim overhead lights flickering in a hesitant dance. The wooden floor groaned beneath his weight, echoing through the empty store. Shelves laden with vintage products, their labels aged like fine wine, whispered tales of a time long forgotten. David, at 29, held the keys to this nostalgic kingdom, a kingdom he insisted on preserving in the face of modernity's relentless advance. Closing time had arrived, and with meticulous care, David proceeded to usher the last remnants of daylight from the store. The ancient cash register clinked with finality, and the metallic groan of the sliding door echoed through the empty aisles. Silence settled like dust, a heavy shroud that clung to every corner. Yet, as the minutes wore on, an unsettling hush began to permeate the air. David, ensconced in the routine of tidying up, felt the first shivers of disquiet. It began as a mere murmur, a soft sigh lingering in the air. He shook it off, attributing it to the quirks of an aging establishment. The whispers, however, persisted, faint and indistinct at first, like the distant rustle of leaves in a long-forgotten forest. David, ever the pragmatist, dismissed them as figments of his imagination, a consequence, perhaps, of the long hours and the creaking bones of an old store. He moved through the aisles, the whispers a spectral backdrop to his mundane tasks. A shadow darted just beyond his periphery, a fleeting wisp that danced on the edge of vision. The vintage products on the shelves seemed to watch him with a silent, collective gaze. As David approached the dimly lit corner where canned goods lined the shelves, the whispers grew more pronounced. He strained to decipher the words, catching fragments that teased the fringes of his consciousness. The air, thick with the scent of nostalgia, seemed to carry the weight of untold secrets. "Remember," the whispers murmured, a spectral chorus that sent a shiver down David's spine. He turned, but the aisles remained empty, bathed in the soft glow of flickering lights. The store, once familiar and comforting, now held a spectral undercurrent that set his nerves on edge. With a hesitant glance over his shoulder, David pondered the unseen forces at play. The old grocery store, it seemed, clutched its secrets close, and as the night deepened, so too did the mystery that whispered through its aisles. David stood alone amidst the hushed aisles, the faint hum of flickering fluorescent lights casting long shadows that danced with the rhythm of his hesitant breaths. The quaint grocery store, once a haven of nostalgic charm, now harbored an unsettling secret. The wooden shelves, lined with neatly stacked cans and faded packages, seemed to hold their collective breath, waiting for something ominous to unfold. The muted ticking of an old-fashioned clock near the cashier's counter echoed through the stillness. David's hand, trembling ever so slightly, reached for a can of soup. As he turned away, a murmur, soft and indistinct, slithered through the silence, wrapping itself around the store like a ghostly specter. David. The voice, if it could be called that, caressed the syllables of his name with an otherworldly intimacy. He froze, his fingers gripping the can with a sudden intensity. Dismissing the sound as a figment of his imagination, he continued his routine, rearranging products on the shelves. But the whispers persisted, like elusive shadows that clung to the corners of his consciousness. They twisted and coiled, insinuating themselves into the fabric of his thoughts. Each soft utterance carried an undercurrent of malevolence, a subtle threat veiled in spectral ambiguity. Remember, David. The voice became more than a whisper. It morphed into a phantom echo of guilt, reverberating through the hollow spaces of the store. David's breath quickened, beads of sweat forming on his forehead, despite the chill in the air. He felt an unseen presence, a spectral weight pressing down on him. The aisles seemed to elongate, stretching into an abyss of uncertainty. The products on the shelves distorted, their labels twisting into cryptic messages, only decipherable to a mind on the precipice of unraveling. A jar of pickles spelled out a fragment of David's past, the ghostly voice weaving a tale of remorse and tragedy. As David moved towards the register, the murmurings intensified, surrounding him like a chorus of tormented souls. He glanced around, his eyes wide with a mix of fear and disbelief. Shadows slinked across the linoleum floor, dancing in tandem with the whispers that now echoed with a clarity that defied the physical laws of sound. Face it, David. The voice, now a haunting proclamation, sent shivers down his spine. His steps faltered, and he found himself standing before a row of old photographs on a forgotten display. Images of the store's history stared back at him, frozen smiles, concealing the tragedies that had unfolded within these walls. A photograph caught his attention. A former employee, eyes vacant and haunted. The whispers reached a crescendo, revealing the connection between that tormented soul and the lingering malevolence that plagued the store. David's heart pounded, the weight of unresolved guilt settling upon his shoulders. In the profound stillness that followed, David stood at the precipice of an unraveling reality. The store's soul laid bare before him. The unsettling murmurs had breached the walls of his consciousness, unlocking a door to a past he had long buried. And in that moment of spectral revelation, the store itself seemed to exhale a sigh, as if acknowledging the reckoning that awaited them both. The flickering fluorescent lights cast a pallid glow across the empty store, revealing aisles of neatly arranged products standing in stoic silence. David Turner, the 29-year-old store manager, found himself ensnared in the web of the whispers that now echoed through the aisles like ghostly sighs. Unsettled, he clutched a weathered ledger, his fingers trembling with a mix of curiosity and trepidation. With each step, the creaking floorboards beneath his feet seemed to synchronize with the cadence of the insidious whispers. David's once confident stride had transformed into a cautious dance, a hesitant acknowledgement of the growing malevolence that clung to the very air he breathed. The ledger, a tome of forgotten transactions and mundane inventory logs, became David's talisman against the encroaching darkness. As he delved into the store's history, dust-laden memories resurfaced, painting an unsettling portrait of a tragedy that had long been buried beneath layers of faded receipts and old grocery lists. In the dim light of the back office, David unearthed a box containing faded photographs and newspaper clippings. He gingerly flipped through the brittle pages, his eyes widening as he pieced together the haunting puzzle of the store's past. A former employee, Eleanor Dawson, stared back at him from a yellowed photograph, her eyes harboring secrets that transcended the sepia tones. Eleanor's story unfolded in the whispers that seemed to emanate from the very walls. She had been more than an employee. She had been the heartbeat of the store, a presence woven into its very fabric. Her untimely demise, shrouded in mystery, had cast a spectral shadow over the grocery store, transforming it into a vessel of unresolved grief. The whispers, now more insistent, provided glimpses of David's connection to Eleanor's tragedy, cryptic fragments of conversations he had long forgotten, choices he wished he could undo, manifested in the ethereal murmurs. The ledger in his hands became a grimoire, revealing the blurred lines between past and present, guilt and innocence. As David delved deeper, the store seemed to react to the unearthed secrets. A subtle chill permeated the air, and shadows danced along the shelves, taking on a life of their own. The whispered secrets intertwined with the rustling of long-forgotten receipts, creating an otherworldly symphony that resonated through the haunted aisles. The ghostly aura of Eleanor Dawson lingered, and David felt her eyes upon him as he closed the ledger. The store, now a stage for the unresolved drama, awaited the next act in the unfolding tragedy. The oppressive atmosphere clung to David's skin, leaving an indelible mark on his soul. With a heavy heart, he turned off the flickering lights, leaving the store in darkness once more. The echoes of the past lingered in the air, intertwining the whispers that now spoke of a reckoning that awaited David Turner in the shadows of the haunted grocery store. The once familiar aisles of the grocery store now seemed to twist and writhe with unseen malevolence. David, ever the stoic manager, found himself ensnared in an intricate dance with the supernatural. The whispers, once mere echoes, now materialized into palpable threats that echoed in the cavernous space between the shelves. Every step he took sent ripples through the spectral energy that hung heavy in the air. The dim light flickered, casting eerie shadows that seemed to move with a life of their own. Whispers slithered through the aisles, taunting David with cryptic messages that seemed to coil around his very sanity. The store, once a haven of nostalgia, had metamorphosed into a haunting tableau of David's unresolved guilt. As he navigated the aisles, he couldn't escape the feeling of unseen eyes following his every move. The whispers intensified, their words a sinister serenade that reverberated through the core of his being. At times, the voices merged into a cacophony of unintelligible murmurs, only to crystallize into distinct threats that chilled David to the bone. "You can't escape," they hissed, their tone dripping with venomous intent. The shelves seemed to shudder in response, as if bearing witness to a malevolent force that transcended the physical realm. David's reflection in the polished grocery store mirrors appeared distorted, his own eyes reflecting the torment within. Shadows danced around him, seemingly detached from the laws of physics. Each whisper carried a fragment of his past, a shard of guilt that pierced through the thin veneer of his composure. As he approached the aisle, where the whispers reached a fevered pitch, the temperature plummeted. Cold tendrils of fear wrapped around him, constricting with an otherworldly grip. Items on the shelves trembled as if trembling in the presence of an unseen malevolence. David, now a reluctant dancer in this macabre ballet, questioned his own sanity. The once cozy store had become a spectral battleground, and he, its unwitting protagonist. With each passing moment, the whispers carved deeper into the recesses of his mind, revealing secrets he had long buried. In the heart of the malevolent whispers, David confronted a mirror that reflected not only his physical form, but the distorted specter of his own guilt. The store's transformation into a malevolent entity became undeniable, a manifestation of his own haunted psyche. As the whispers crescendoed, David braced himself for the ultimate revelation. The shelves quivered, and the lights flickered in protest. With a chilling finality, the whispers coalesced into a singular voice, echoing through the aisles with a guttural intensity. "Face your sins, David," it commanded, the words hanging in the air like a dark omen. The store itself seemed to exhale, releasing a collective breath that carried the weight of years of unresolved torment. And in that pivotal moment, David knew there was no turning back. The malevolent force demanded his reckoning, and the echoes of his past reverberated through the haunted aisles, setting the stage for the harrowing confrontation that awaited in the shadows. The town, enshrouded in an otherworldly hush, nestled beneath a sky pregnant with secrets. As the moon cast its pallid glow over the quaint grocery store, David Turner, desperate for answers, sought refuge in the dusty archives of the local historian's study. The historian, a stooped figure with eyes clouded by the weight of forgotten tales, welcomed David. Ancient tomes lined the shelves, their spines cracked but brimming with the stories of a town steeped in darkness. With trembling hands, the historian traced the grotesque patterns that connected the store's history to the chilling whispers that haunted David. "Mr. Turner," the historian rasped, "you're entwined in a dance with forces beyond the veil. The store is a gateway, and the whispers are its sentinels." He spoke of a forgotten ritual, a ceremony that sought to commune with the shadows themselves. A former employee, a custodian of the arcane secrets, had met an untimely end, leaving behind a trail of spiritual residue. The historian's words wove a tapestry of malevolence, revealing a sinister pact that had been struck within the very walls of the grocery store. David's heart raced as he absorbed the chilling narrative. The historian's eyes bore into him, their depths plumbing the recesses of his guilt. With each revelation, the whispers seemed to echo in his mind, resonating with the grim reality of his own involvement in the tragic event. As the night wore on, David was guided by the whispers, leading him back to the store where shadows clung to the shelves like specters of the past. The air hung heavy with the scent of foreboding, and the flickering fluorescent lights cast erratic shadows, mimicking the dance of the macabre. The whispers crescendoed, weaving through the aisles like ethereal serpents, and the store itself seemed to exhale an otherworldly breath. David, driven by a surreal determination, traced the cryptic clues back to the scene of his haunting. Each step reverberated through the hollow aisles, creating a symphony of suspense. As David stood in the heart of the store, an unseen force tugged at the fabric of reality. The shadows coalesced, morphing into nebulous form that loomed over him, a spectral entity, dark and shapeless, yet pregnant with the weight of David's guilt, materialized before him. The confrontation transcended the boundaries of the tangible and the ethereal. The whispers took corporeal form, echoing the anguish of the past. David, his resolve tested, faced the manifestation of his own transgressions. The entity beckoned, demanding acknowledgement and reconciliation. Torn between the spectral force and his own tumultuous emotions, David was forced to confront the darkest recesses of his soul. The air crackled with the palpable tension of a reckoning, and the store bore witness to a cosmic struggle as David grappled with the malevolent force that sought to expose and expunge his guilt. As the climactic encounter unfolded, the store itself seemed to hold its breath, suspended in a transient space between the living and the spectral. And in the final moments of Chapter 5, as the confrontation reached its zenith, a profound silence descended upon the grocery store, leaving only the lingering whispers of the unresolved past echoing in the void. Darkness clung to every corner of the grocery store, shadows pulsating with malevolence as David stood at the threshold of his own personal nightmare. The air crackled with an otherworldly tension, a symphony of whispers echoing through the aisles like a chorus of vengeful spirits. The shelves, once neatly lined with products of mundane existence, now seemed to lean conspiratorially, their contents whispering secrets only David could hear. As he ventured deeper, the hum of fluorescent lights above flickered erratically, casting disorienting shadows that danced to the eerie cadence of the unseen chorus. The familiar scent of aged wood and stale air became suffocating, a reminder of the inescapable grip the store had on David's soul. He could almost taste the bitterness of guilt that lingered in the air. a taste he had tried so desperately to ignore. In the frozen food section, the temperature plummeted, and David's breath materialized in ghostly wisps. The whispers intensified, morphing into accusatory voices that sliced through the frigid air like icy knives. Each step felt like a descent into a bottomless abyss, the gravity of his past pulling him closer to an unavoidable reckoning. A surreal tableau unfolded as the store itself seemed to convulse with an unnatural life. Shadows coalesced into grotesque shapes that writhed and contorted, reflecting the torment within David's tortured mind. Faces, distorted and contorted with pain, emerged from the darkness, accusing him with hollow eyes that penetrated his very soul. David. The whispers converged into a collective voice, a spectral choir of condemnation. You can't escape what you've done. The shelves rattled, products cascading to the floor as the store's malevolent entity took form. A specter of remorse and despair materialized before him, a ghastly manifestation of his own guilt. Its form shifted, resembling the face of the former employee, forever etched in tragedy. As the entity lunged forward, David felt a suffocating pressure on his chest, the weight of culpability pressing down on him. Images from the past flashed before his eyes, a cascade of events leading to an irreversible tragedy that he had long buried in the recesses of his memory. In a voice that mirrored the collective whispers, the entity spoke. Face the truth. David, embrace your guilt, or be consumed by it. The darkness seemed to tighten its grip, threatening to consume David whole. The very foundations of the store quivered as he confronted the entity, his trembling voice breaking through the spectral chorus. I accept it, I'm sorry. The store convulsed one final time, a cacophony of shattering glass and wailing echoes. As quickly as it had manifested, the malevolent force dissipated, leaving David alone in the eerie silence that followed. He stumbled out of the store, gasping for breath in the crisp night air. The once charming grocery store now stood as a silent witness to the haunting ordeal. David, forever marked by the spectral confrontation, turned away, leaving the store and its secrets behind. The town, now draped in an unsettling quiet, bore the scars of a supernatural confrontation. The reader, like David, was left with lingering questions, haunted by the echoes of a past that could never truly be forgotten.